All right.
So I'm talking here with Paul Bradley from EY, and I have a lot of interesting subjects to talk to you about, Paul. And first, you've been doing this for 4.5 years, right? To do the blockchain, to be the blockchain lead at the EY. How did you get into the blockchain field?
I actually got into blockchain when I was at IBM. So I spent about 13 years at IBM, and for the last 5 years at IBM, I was running the global electronics industry. And in that capacity, the most enjoyable thing I got to do was every year we had a electronics industry kind of research program. And each year we picked off different things. Sometimes it was 3D printing. And in the last year or two, we got looking a lot at the Internet of Things. And IoT is a big problem because we're getting to have all these really, really smart devices. But strangely, with all these very smart devices, we're still paying for huge quantities of data center computing, right? So behind this smart device is enough data center computing infrastructure that it costs about $5, $10 per device per year. Now, that's fine if you sell a $1,000 phone with $400 of margin. That's going to last for 3 years. But what if you sell a $20 smart connected light bulb, and that's going to last for 15 years? Now, the costs of these devices are potentially bankrupting. And so I asked this question early on in around 2013. These devices are getting really smart. Why, if it's a light bulb or refrigerator, it's connected to mains power. It's relatively smart. It's getting smarter all the time. These embedded CPUs are really converging with sort of mobile devices, and many of them have network connectivity, so they can be remotely managed. Why can't we get them using distributed computing technology to manage themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Seems to make perfect sense. So we started looking at distributed computing technologies, and we settled on blockchain, and specifically the alpha version of Ethereum, because we had this idea, which I think it's funny to say this now because it's still true. We said to ourselves, blockchain is fantastic because it's built for commerce, right? Blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum are built not just to do computing and logic, but also to do payments and accounts and so on. And we said to ourselves, we don't really know how anyone is going to monetize the Internet of Things. We just know that one day it's going to happen. And so we want a distributed computing infrastructure that not only executes logic like any other computing infrastructure, but is built for commerce and payment. So I can pay you for access to data or services.
Okay, so what you're saying is really you were thinking of an application before the blockchain was there. I mean, when the blockchain came there, when Ethereum came there, you thought, okay, this is really perfect. And now the infrastructure takes a while to become grown up and to be able to do all those kinds of things. But you already have a goal for a long time in your mind. Okay.
And we built on it. We built IBM's first blockchain. It was called Adept. And we actually sold it to Samsung. And Samsung were really visionaries in this category. And, towards the end of this process, and we worked with Vitalik Buterin. It was the alpha version of Ethereum. And it was an amazing experience. And I was completely hooked on blockchain. It's like, this is an absolute revolution. And IBM was not interested. Not interested. They were like, this is not the right direction. This is not how we want to build our IoT business. You got to stop working on this. And I realized that got to stop working on this for me meant I probably need to go somewhere else, because this is going to be where I hope ultimately make my mark.
Okay, so you ended up at 2010. You left IBM in 2015. And started then, and then really, how did a tech guy, how did you get at EY? Why that choice? I mean, let's keep it short because I have much more interesting things I want to know, but just a quick one.
Very simply, EY got stuck in the blockchain business by accident, mostly because they started to have clients who had material amounts of Bitcoin and other digital assets on their books. And the choice at that point is, do we audit them or do we say goodbye to those clients? So the answer was, we don't say goodbye to the clients. So we better figure out this blockchain stuff quickly. And that turned out to be our entry point.
Yeah, I see that at the moment, EY has a lot of projects. You have hundreds and hundreds of projects, and here are some of the applications. Are those projects really proof of concepts, or are they in production? You say that nowadays it's not so much anymore to figure out what they want to do, but to really go into production. What is the state of those projects?
Well, so certainly there was a wonderful period where people said, I don't really know what a blockchain is, but I have like $1 million, so can you make me something, right? And that was, I suppose that was a good period of time. But now we're in a much more mature phase of this market where what's happening is we have a set number of very well articulated and designed solutions that fit specific problems, right? And those they're getting into production, they're moving to scale, they have large numbers of users. So a good example is product traceability, right? We have something, I don't know, last time we even bothered to check, it was in the tens of millions of bottles of wine and cases of food that we've tracked on the blockchain. And we can do food, we can do pharmaceuticals, we can do vaccines. So traceability.
This is the EY Upchain platform.
That's right. So if you think about it, so one clear use case, traceability, that using a product called Upchain, which is all about doing business on the blockchain. Another one that we're building up is procurement. Again, it's about doing business, running a transaction. And we have another one called public finance management, which is about helping governments manage their spending. So we have a set of what I call business applications. These are where you do constructive, productive things on the blockchain that have very specific return on investment, right? We have a second category of products that have emerged that's very clear and has a very clear value proposition, which is financial statement audit, right? If you are a cryptocurrency asset holder, if you are a crypto exchange, if you are a stable coin, this is an industry that's been, for all the talk about trustless environments, this is an industry that keeps getting disappointed by breaches of trust. And a big part of our business is financial statement audit, right? You say you have $100 million in stablecoin. Do you have $100 million in the bank? That's an extremely relevant question, which not enough people answer.
And is that now really being done? I mean, I thought you said you had like 240 insurance companies which are holding crypto in any shape or form, but you say that those are real projects at the moment. The investment in blockchain and the investment in implementing blockchain is very strong at the moment. Is that true? Because I think we have here in Europe, we have sort of a bit more of blockchain winter, but is that not happening in California? What's going on?
Well, winter is not as bad here in California, but no. In all seriousness, what's happened is this, right? There absolutely was, and there was a blockchain winter in business applications. Yeah. And the reason for that, and I want to come back to the reason for that, but what was amazing last year, in spite of COVID, in spite of the winter for business applications, our business grew, and it grew substantially, and it grew entirely fueled by cryptocurrency, crypto asset, crypto finance. And all of that is our assurance business, our financial statement audit. And that business is just growing like a rocket because of the number of transactions, the value of assets under management. And there's two things that are happening. Number one, our business grows every time a company reaches the point where they have a material amount, and I'm not an accountant, so I can't tell you. Material means serious amount of money in those crypto assets that they need audited. Right? If it's not material, if it's kind of trivial to your balance sheet, then you don't really need to properly audit it. If it's material, you've got to. So that's one thing that drives our business growth. Another thing that drives our business growth is all the companies that are preparing for an IPO, a material, a financial statement. Think about what PayPal, Square, and others are doing. They are the number of companies, MicroStrategy, Twitter, that are holding this not just a few 100,000, but tens of millions or hundreds of millions of crypto on their books. That's fueling an explosive growth in the assurance side of our business. Okay, so what you see is that the Bitcoin now is back to its all-time high, and that's not consumer investors anymore, but it's really enterprises and institutions, right? And we primarily just serve enterprises and institutions.
No, but I mean,
consumers are fueling.
The demand for the demand for Bitcoin and Ethereum is now much more from companies and not from consumer investors.
No, I would say it's still very much a mix of both, especially like PayPal, Square. The number of end consumers who are going to have what I will call like point and click access to buy crypto, especially Bitcoin, has increased from maybe 30 or 40 million a few years ago to probably several hundred million at this point. So consumers are driving a huge quantity of demand. Enterprises, family offices, diversified financial portfolios. Bitcoin is taking its place, whether you love it or not, as a global digital asset class, probably sort of holding a similar value proposition to gold.
Okay. Let's go back to the enterprise then. You say there's four things. I saw you're in your presentation in Shanghai. You say there's four things driving the blockchain adaptation in the business. And I mean, of course are all looking at China for central bank digital currency. Is that the same as you say here? The China digital currency electronic payment. Is that the same? What you mean? The same thing? CDBC?
Yes, in China, what they call the CBDC is called DCEP, Digital Currency Electronic Payment. Amazingly, in January of this year, I was in China. I met with the PBOC. I also met with the Communications Ministry, met with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, got a chance to really dig into what's going on, what some of the aspirations are. And I think, they're very, very serious. This product is absolutely being rolled out. And what's especially impressive and is true in China and is not, frankly speaking, as true in the rest of the world, is that China has a strategic roadmap for where their central bank digital currency is going. It's going to start as a consumer type of product, a consumer payment product that will expand access to digital payments beyond kind of the WeChat and Alipay base that exists today. Secondly, though, eventually it's going to become a general purpose business payment tool that can be integrated into the private blockchain networks that are spreading throughout China. And China also has, related to that, they have a very thoughtful view about how to regulate private blockchains, because private blockchains in the rest of the world have been failures. And they've been failures because nobody wants to join a very specialized small group blockchain. But in China, what's happening is private blockchains are likely to end up being regulated as similar to telephony companies, which is they'll be subject to common carrier regulations. So there'll be standardization requirements, there'll be interconnection rules, and there'll be rules on that sort of cap and manage the pricing of interconnection. And so China will have a fully interconnected, compatible digital kind of blockchain ecosystem. And when that exists, not only will you be able to enter into smart contracts on private blockchains within China. Oh, you're so good with the slides, Vincent. Not only will you be able to enter into smart contracts within these digital ecosystem, but you'll be able to use DCE Pay most likely as payment. And then, as you have up on the slide, and as our anticipation, right, the Chinese government is also thoughtful about the fact that although they exercise tremendous authority within their own country and quite a substantial amount of authority in their broader trading ecosystem, they are a global trading organization. They are a country that is a big global trader. They're the world's, I think, biggest or second biggest exporter. And so consequently, exactly, they are thinking about how they will link this Chinese digital ecosystem to the rest of the world. And so I expect to see, whether it's through Hong Kong or there's a very cool project going on under the BSN group, a blockchain service network group, that will create a managed access to the Ethereum public network. And we're working with BSN on this so that we can have our products and services integrated there. And the goal is, again, to connect Chinese companies into a global digital blockchain infrastructure.
Yeah. So of course, this whole around these 60 countries from the Belt and Road Initiative, they will try to become dominant. There will be 3 different things. We'll be very interested about your opinion. I mean, I talked to David Birch yesterday. He's a thinker in Europe, and he said, it's going to be an incredibly important. I don't want to say war. Actually, his book, he said it was a Cold War between the 3 different blocks. So I mean, America has the most to win from a digital currency, but is doing the least. China is coming up and can become very dominant in a new kind of asset class, and Europe is trying to also do something about it. How do you see those 3 big players coming out?
So I think way too much of the conversation, frankly speaking, is driven by this envy of what others have and are doing, and is not nearly enough of it is asking this very useful question: what is it that a central bank digital currency, what problem would they solve? And I think, to be honest, that this is not well thought out. And I'll just give you central bank digital currencies as if we were walking around with cash, right? And I do have cash, and I know I have cash because I never spend any of it, so it's always in my wallet, right? 90% of all money is already digital, right?
Digital.
And that is true in the US and the US, the UK, FedNow, the UK National Payment System, all of these countries that are building real-time digital payment clearinghouses. So one of the questions that I don't get honestly good answers from central bankers on when I talk to them is, what problem are you solving by creating a central bank digital currency? Now, they say, well, we're making money digital, but my answer is, but it's already digital, right? Well, so how are you solving this? Well, we have a better view of systemic risk. I would say, no, you don't, because knowing where the cash is does not tell you what kind of risky derivatives that you are signed into. Finally, the question I ask is, okay, if I look at how people want to use stable coins on the public Ethereum network, they want to use them as part of digital contracts. So will you allow programmability? And the answer is heavens no. There could be all kinds of hacks and so on. So if you're not going to allow programmability, you're not going to allow interoperability with public Ethereum and other public networks, and you already have digital currency, to be perfectly honest, the answers to what problem are you solving and how will this improve the state of the art are, frankly speaking, not very good.
Okay, well but so you don't have a big vision of how these, because he thought it was one of the most important things. If you see our financial system at the moment, how it's really cracking up and all the debts we have, and that of course money is at the moment digital, but it isn't. It is totally connected into the financial system. And if you saw that everywhere, like PayPal was not in the financial system, became extremely successful. The payment system in Kenya, where SMS came, was a new kind of system, not connected to the banking system, and innovation can go 1,000 times faster. Let's not get into that.
Oh, can I make one more comment about this, because this is an important one to me.
Okay.
Huge amount of innovation is happening, and it is happening with stable coins on the public Ethereum blockchain. And my personal opinion, which is not the opinion of my employer or anybody else who ever wants to talk to me, the single most important thing that's happening right now from a regulatory standpoint is a decision by the Bank of England to produce a regulatory framework for stable coins on public blockchains, and not to talk about a private central bank controlled digital network, which is just a closed blockchain, right? And that innovation is taking place on public blockchains. And there's no reason to believe we cannot have innovation on these public blockchains without regulatory compliance. It's absolutely possible, and it's where we will get the real game changers.
Okay, good. Okay, let's keep it at that. But I wanted to ask you about this whole thing. You think the triumph of the public blockchain. So you are really into that. You say that the fight is over, private blockchain. That was 3 years ago. Everybody was discussing that. But now you say the public blockchain is going. So there's two subjects I want to talk, because in 13 minutes you have to go. So I want to basically ask, okay, about Ethereum 2.0. When is this thing going to be production ready? And secondly, about your on top of what you've made on top of Ethereum to make it more useful for the enterprise, and you have a vision of sort of ERP for ecosystems. So I thought that was really interesting. Why do you think that the public there's a triumph of the public blockchain? Because they still are very expensive. They still have a very limited amount of transactions. They are still not, the safety. The tools are still shitty. Well, maybe they're a little bit better, but why are you so positive about the public blockchains, and especially Ethereum and Ethereum 2.0?
So let me see if I can sort of maybe refute a couple of those points of view. So number one, they're not expensive. In fact, what's really expensive is building a private blockchain for you and your 4 other business partners. That's expensive, right? We literally have clients who are talking about hundreds or thousands of dollars per transaction because they spent like millions to build this private blockchain, and they've got like 4 other companies on it, right? So $5 or $10, spending $5 or $10 on gas in Ethereum is actually very, very inexpensive, and it's inexpensive often for what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
Ethereum, by the way, is not and should not be seen as a primarily consumer payment system. It is an enterprise or business to business a payment ecosystem and infrastructure contracting system, and
Sure.
and consequently the costs for that are perfectly reasonable. So that's point number one. Secondly,
okay, so you say €6 the average and €3 the main transaction cost is not a problem for your clients.
yeah, it's not a problem for most business to business transactions. Keep in mind, so this is the other thing. People keep confusing different metrics. So if you're an enterprise or a bank, the cost of making the actual payment is tiny and trivial. That's not what's expensive. What's expensive is before I make the payment to you, I need to reconcile the amount of money that you've given me, the services that you've delivered, our contract terms. That's very expensive, right?
Yeah.
If you talk to the average company, what does it cost to implement a purchase order? What does it cost to pay a purchase order?
Yeah.
What they'll tell you
30,
is
40,
check,
100,000. Yes. Okay.
the check cost me 25 cents, the postage stamp cost me 30 cents, and the paperwork and reconciliation was $50, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to take that total cost, which is $50.60, and I'm going to do what we did at Microsoft on the blockchain, which is I'm going to drive that down to about $10 or less.
Okay. Thank you. Good point. Second thing.
Cost, not an issue. Secondly, transaction volume, absolutely true. You don't have as much transaction volume, but you're chasing a moving target, right? It is, I guarantee you that, 30 or 40 years ago when the major credit card systems were launched, they couldn't do 1 million online transactions a day either, right? You're chasing a moving target. Ethereum 2.0 is going to get there. We know these things are possible. And we're looking at optimistic rollups as well. There's a ton of work that's being done to address both transaction cost and scalability. But the main value, the main issue for doing a public blockchain is that wherever you have multiple parties and you have shared business logic, you need some kind of infrastructure to manage the shared kind of business transaction. And there are two ways to do that, right? One is on a public blockchain using privacy tools, and the other is to go to a digital portal. The problem with portals, whether they are shopping portals or ride-sharing portals or apartment sharing portals, is centrally controlled portals inevitably become dominators of the market, right? They see too much information, they have too much power. And so I believe if you're an enterprise and you want to interact with other companies, and you want to do so without waking up one morning and discovering that you are a bit player in someone else's ecosystem, the only way that's going to happen is if you decide to do it on a public blockchain.
Okay. Yeah, you say actually it's the playing field is much more close. So let me ask you then immediately, what do you think of the launch of today? I mean, we're now actually the first hundreds of millions of dollars are going into Ethereum 2.0. What do you expect and what do you think? What do you expect and what do you think is the most important thing that is changing?
So to compare one visionary to another, right? In some ways, Vitalik Buterin is a little bit like Elon Musk, right? He's always late, but they're getting there, right? And Ethereum 2.0, it's later than everybody said it would be. It doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, whether it was in 2020 or 2019 or 2021, right? There's nothing that they're doing on Ethereum 2.0 that they're not able to do or haven't proved out in other blockchains. And so I sort of liken Ethereum a little bit like Microsoft Windows. It's the most dominant blockchain. It's got the most developers. It's easy to criticize, right? And lots of people will tell you how it's a terrible blockchain or it's a terrible operating system and it was never that good and there were always better choices. That doesn't change the fact that it is now and is likely to continue to be the dominant global digital blockchain infrastructure. And so, I never want to get sucked into a discussion of which one's better, which one's worse. I don't care. We build our business applications at EY for the blockchain with the most developers and the most users and the largest capital base, and that's Ethereum. Done, end of story.
What is for you the biggest advantage of finally that 2.0 is there?
That we can start testing it, we can start building on it, right? We know that in order to get to our vision of the future, which is that most business-to-business transactions will be done on a public blockchain with business contracting. The current Ethereum blockchain doesn't support the volume of transactions. It's missing a bunch of other features like special elliptic curves and other things that support privacy properly. Ethereum 2.0 is the path that we need to get there. So this is we have to ride that forward, right? We believe, and you've again picked a wonderful slide, we believe that every business process that you can really think of that takes place between two or more companies can be set up and run as some combination of tokens, right? I have money, you have stuff, and we're exchanging them, under a set of contracts. Well, ultimately, I want to think one of my colleagues, John Wolpert, the great guy, did an estimate is, you need ultimately a couple billion transactions a day to move the entire, business to business world onto Ethereum. So we're getting there. This is the direction we have to go.
Okay, and it will. But what will it bring us? It will bring 2.0 will bring us a lot more transactions, lower cost, and better tools to write to more complex projects. So you can basically do the complete supply chain. Because I thought you had a very nice saying. I didn't take the slide, but you said you think that the function of the blockchain will be like ERP for ecosystems. So ERP was for enterprises, is like the blockchain will be for ecosystems, for lots of people, because they have shared logic, they have shared information, and they have shared a lot of people, of course. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so if you think about what happened inside the enterprise, right? When ERP came out, enterprise resource planning, it was possible finally for kind of the left hand and the right hand to know what was going on, right? If you picked the last packet of potato chips off the Walmart shelf in California, it triggered an order back in Arkansas to replenish those potato chips, right? It linked up through both common data and common process, a business value chain inside of the single enterprise. Right. Mm-hmm. What's amazing is inside the enterprise, we have all these very sophisticated tools. We've got, we have these days, we have increasingly consistent kind of core data. We have standardized processes. We have clever analytics. We have all these things that go into what's the classic buy, make, move, store, and sell model. The minute you leave the enterprise, all that continuity disappears. Right. So, the retailer is digital, and then the supplier is digital, and the farmer is even digital, but none of them are digital together. And and it's that togetherness, right? So yes, when I pick up a bag of potato chips, I buy the last one, it triggers a reordering function inside the retailer. But shouldn't it trigger a reordering function that goes through the retailer back to the original manufacturer and then onto the farmer, right? That it doesn't do yet. And what blockchain will do is it will allow us to have continuity of information and logic across enterprise boundaries.
Yeah, so that's a beautiful vision, and I thought it was also nice that you say 10 years from now, just like Amazon had web services 10 years ago, and now it's more than 50% of the implementation. You expect this takes 10 years to have this process?
I do. I'm a huge fan of kind of studying the history of technology adoption, and whether it's railroads or telegraphs or ERP systems, right? The truth is we've had lots of tech revolutions, but they kind of go in many ways the same way over and over again. It takes companies time to think through all of the implications of this stuff. And it goes through predictable phases. So phase one is what we call your mess for less, right? I'm going to take my process and I'm going to put it on a blockchain, right? But after we've done that, what starts happening is people say, you know what? We can start really rearranging things. We can, I always joke, like my kids, they have Legos, right? So first they make the product that's on the box. But as soon as they've made the product that's on the box, they start tearing off all the Legos and they start making really cool new stuff. And that's when they're at their most creative, is after they've made the thing on the box in the picture, right? Eventually we'll get there, and it'll happen, I don't know, maybe another 3 or 4 years from now, we will start to see the emergence of what I will call truly blockchain native business models that are not just financial services. We're already seeing that with financial services, which are early and mature. That's what DeFi is. That's the first wave of what I'll call really disruptive, programmable innovation. That's financial services. 3 or 4 years from now, we're going to see that with all kinds of other solutions like industrial operations, business applications, and services. So we're really just getting started.
Yeah. Okay. So then the last thing I have to ask you is about baseline. How is baseline developing? I mean, first, can you tell us? Can you explain in an easy way what is baseline, and how did you build it on top of Ethereum together with Microsoft and consensus and that kind of stuff? I mean, we all looked at it. I mean, Corona was coming out when you were coming out with how do you say that,
Baseline.
with baseline. So it has the funder was stolen by another kind of technology. But how is it developing?
It's developing wonderfully, right? The idea behind baseline is, again, we come back to this issue of we want to change how the world does business, right? I want there to be no friction in this process. So if we want no friction, then what that means is we need to put it into the public domain. And I realized very quickly, it's great that we've done all this. We've done a lot of the foundational work of privacy technology. We can't do this all on our own. So we went looking first for our original group of sort of co-founders, which turned out to be Microsoft and Consensus. And the goal behind baseline is very simple. Let's take all the bits and pieces that enterprises need to have secure, private, regulatory compliant business transactions, put them on the public blockchains on the Ethereum mainnet. Let's package that all up into a single kind of package of protocols and solutions that runs on Ethereum. And then let's invite many other companies to start contributing, accelerating, and developing. So baseline, I hope, will just become the standard set of tools that make it easy for companies to build their business on public Ethereum.
Okay, so it has a couple of things. It basically encrypts the data, so it's not recognizable, but it still can be governed. It still can be regulated. Those two things can go together.
And yes, I would say two really important things to remember about baseline. Number one, there is a foundational principle in baseline, which is we never use the blockchain for sensitive business information. Sensitive data is stored off chain, and what we use the blockchain for is kind of enterprise middleware. Number two, the simplest analogy I can give you is baseline, in a sense, is like a set of tools to make a VPN on the public Ethereum network. Yeah. So you pick your business partners, you use open standards, you use the public network, right? You're connected into this global ecosystem, but you've got privacy for your transactions with your business partners. You decide what others can participate in. And so it is orders of magnitude cheaper than a private blockchain. It is vastly more secure, right? 10,000 nodes, 1 million transactions a day. The amount of computing power that secures the public Ethereum network compared to any private blockchain is immense. It's cheaper, it's more secure, it's more reliable, and it gives you access to the world's largest blockchain. What would be a better way to build your business?
Yeah. Okay. What's the state of it now? You've launched it, then everybody was busy with Corona. What has happened in the meantime?
People weren't busy with Corona. They were home developing on baseline. It's been fabulous. It's progressed really nicely. Our first products that use baseline are coming online now. You can use them at blockchain.ey.com. Off-chain network procurement is the very first one. Accenture has joined the group. We have something like 50 companies now working on this. It's gotten tremendous momentum. I'm very proud that we've achieved the point where EY's contributions are no longer pivotal, right? We're just we're a contributing member of a crowd, a very important crowd, a very transformational crowd, but this has momentum, it has a life of its own, and I'm really proud of that.
And what did people think in EY to say, hey, we're going to have all these expensive hours of developers and consultants, and we have our own juice, and we're going to basically make it open source? How does that fly in California inside EY?
So I think on the tech side of EY, everyone gets it. We all understand the value of open source, of public domain, of ecosystem adoption. I think there's absolutely, we have a lot of committees here. I get dragged in front of a lot of committees where people say, so you spent all this money and then you gave it away, and could you explain why you did that? And so I give the explanation a lot. But to be fair, and to give my due to my fellow partners who have funded all of this, because we are a partnership, and every one of my partner colleagues has effectively pitched into their pocketbook and given us money for this, right? No one has said no. I've had to explain it a lot, and lots of people have kind of scratched their head a little bit, but to their credit, everybody pretty much has been on board, and we have enjoyed tremendous support. So I'm very grateful to my fellow partners for the vote of confidence that they give me every year with the budget allocations.
Do you have time
And
for
with that,
one?
I do apologize. I got sure,
Yeah.
one quick one.
One quick question about identity. We're very much into Holland about identity. Self-sovereign identity is really going to be a necessary part. What is your? That's the last question I have for you. What's your vision of how that's going to develop?
Uh, I
How
think
does
it'll
it
be
fit?
important, but I think we also have to recognize that, and I'm going to sound cynical here, but in the world of financial services and payments and KYC and AML, you don't really control your identity. The truth is the government controls your identity. You can say whatever you want. You can say, I'm Batman. That's
No, no,
not what
no.
it says on your government issued ID,
Hey, but
right?
if I
It
have a
turns out I'm not Batman.
if I have a self-sovereign identity, the first thing I'm going to do is saying, "Hey, please, government, just agree that this is my identity," and I'm going to have lots of different places which are basically going to confirm, and then I'm going to give little pieces out. Of course, the government is going to be an important foundation, but who's going to be the partner?
They're
Yeah.
say that again.
So who's going to be that in that self-sovereign identity field? Do you think it's going to be important? The government is going to be incredibly important, but is that going to be part of your scheme? Is that an important part of your thinking and of your solutions?
For us, no. I think we looked at that market and we said it's a very, very crowded, and we probably are not going to be a big player in identity. We are going to use the best available open source tools that other people provide, and we are going to follow the government guidelines because we are very focused on regulatory compliance and helping our large clients. One of the toughest things that I've done in this business, it's the hardest thing, it's been the least fun thing, is I say no so much. Right.
Good.
My mission is to do a small number of things
No,
really well. I looked at identity and I just felt like we could not bite that one off.
Paul. I'm going to link to your presentation in Shanghai. I would recommend everybody to take a look at it. This guy has no small vision. That is basically, he wants to be ERP for ecosystems among all kinds of partners. And in 10 years, 50% of the business transactions should be on the blockchain. Paul, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time because we're not ready with your vision yet.
Thank you so much, Vincent. Have a terrific day and glad to be part of it.
Bye.